We almost got wrecked right in year one because we were just holding Bitcoin, and the price went from whatever 40, 50,000 down to 15,000.
We are building standards right now, and especially because every company will be a Bitcoin company.
You can always have the upside with Bitcoin. You can go 2, 3x, but you should never be basing your business around that. That should always be like an additional benefit. Make sure that you holding Bitcoin is not going to prevent you from doing anything operationally that you want to do as a business.
These guys prepared without me, and I was like, guys, I'm the moderator.
You're too busy.
I was a little busy, but thank you so much. We'll come in here. How's everyone doing, by the way? This has been so amazing. I just cannot thank you guys enough for being here. It's truly an honor. These three folks, I actually wanted to do this panel and forced myself as the moderator because these are three people that I constantly go to with my Bitcoin questions. So I thought it'd be a fun treat to actually open this up to a broader audience. So we're going to produce this. My friend Rockstar. This is not live streamed right now.
Absolutely, yeah, let's produce it. I have the mask on.
Let's go. Let's fucking go. Real quick, how about we do just some quick introductions and then we'll get started. Steve, if you want to start.
So I'm Steve Myers. I'm one of the contributors on the Bitcoin Dev Kit project, which is a library, open source, free and open source for building Bitcoin wallets on-chain software. One of our marquee customers is AnchorWatch, so we're very proud of that. Also BitKey and ProtonMail. So that's our claim to fame. I also am one of the board members on the Bitcoin Dev Kit Foundation, and that's kind of related to what I'll be talking about today.
Joe Wood. I started Satoshi Petroleum Accounting about 3.5 years ago. Really focused on providing accounting and tax services for Bitcoiners.
Show of hands, who's a client of Joe's? Let's go. That's amazing.
So I'm an Uncle Rockstar developer, a core contributor on BTC Pay server. Some of you may know me from my work on Strike, from my talks on this Bitcoin conference circuit. I talk about a lot of different topics related to Bitcoin, cypherpunks, and similar topics. And then now I also advise some Bitcoin companies, VC funds. That's how I spend most of my time, besides participating in panels and talks.
Amazing. So my biggest, and I mentioned this before, so we started Bitcoin Park. We remain Bitcoin only, and we do accept fiat. And all of our bills are denominated in fiat. But we almost got wrecked right in year one because we were just holding Bitcoin. And the price went from whatever, 40, 50,000 down to 15,000. I'm just curious, Steve, you're on the BDK Foundation. Joe, you obviously run your own business on a Bitcoin standard, and you serve on a bunch of boards. You're serving on the board of BTC Pay server. You're paying a bunch of folks. How do you think about treasury management such that you have enough Bitcoin or whatever denominated currency to pay out folks that are employees, developers, and so on?
I guess we'll start with me. The Bitcoin Foundation, BDK Foundation was fortunate we started after that all happened, so we didn't have to live through that direct. But I will say that it's still, of course, top of our mind. Joe is our treasurer also, so he helps us with this. I think, so we have some grants that we pay in fiat, directly wires, and then some we pay in Bitcoin. So we do try to keep a mix of enough Bitcoin and enough fiat to pay our monthly needs. And for the Bitcoin side, just keeping enough of a buffer in case the price goes down.
But again, I'm ways on the left side of the bell curve. I need rails. Do you think about it like a 10%? How do you look at those buffers? Is it 3 months in fiat?
6 months.
6 months?
I would say 6 months, but Steve, continue.
No, I think that would be, we don't have a hard and fast rule, although, yeah, I think 6 months would be, that's what we're currently doing.
Why 6 months, out of curiosity?
From my experience, 6 months is you were looking for a silver bullet. I was going to give you a silver bullet at 6 months. And another thing I want to get out of the way at the beginning is I understand the irony of a masked guy talking about accounting and compliance, but I have Rod to thank because he knows about the work I've been doing, and really now I'm at the point where the code I've written, like that plugin for BTC Pay server, Strike is processing tons of payments and money. There are now millions flowing every week through code I've written. So I appreciate the opportunity to share my experience with people. And you do this for me, but you do it for so many other people like you, establish connections. So can we get a round of applause for Rod for doing that? Yeah, I know he doesn't just do it for me. He does it for a lot of people. So what we also do at BTC Pay Server Foundation as well, what helps a lot is if you have supporters that have denominated their grants in fiat. So let's say they gave you 100K over a year and they're paying you out monthly. So even though they can send you in Bitcoin, if they're sending that $8,333 every month in Bitcoin, it's a different amount of Bitcoin. And as you forward it to your contributors, to your vendors, you don't care about Bitcoin price as much. I can say like at a BTC Pay server, we are now at the point where 100% of funds that we hold it in Bitcoin. And not, partially it is because we believe in Bitcoin, but partially it is because banking system is so terrible. When you have contributors all over the world, wiring that money is a task, especially in a country like Japan that has very strict regulations. So you actually can't send wire transfer online. You need to go to bank, you need to fill out all the papers, sign it, and Bitcoin just crushes that experience compared to traditional banking.
We're probably going to not, if I share this story, then we're going to nuke this panel and publish it. So should I share this story or no?
I mean, do it towards the end. So
Yeah, I'll do it. Okay, I'll do it
Yeah.
towards the end. That's a good call. Good call. Joe, what do you think?
Yeah, I think the one caveat I would also throw out there, like I think 6 months is probably a good rule there, but it also matters like how much overall treasury do you have, right? Like if you have a huge treasury, you can hold it all on Bitcoin. When Bitcoin goes down by 50%, you can still do all the things that you need to do as a business. You can have a much higher proportion there, right? And so keep that in mind as far as how Bitcoin integrates into the overall business. I would just say make sure that you holding Bitcoin is not going to prevent you from doing anything operationally that you want to do as a business, knowing that there's always going to be an upside, but like protecting yourself against the downside.
Yeah. If you have a huge position, I think would be relevant relative to the cost that you have, right? Because if you have like 10 million
Exactly.
in Bitcoin
Yes.
and you have 9 million in costs.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
I'll just add one other thing that's important that Joe helps us with is tracking that also. Like, I mean, this is like basic accounting, but knowing how well you did last year on your gains and losses on your Bitcoin, because you're paying out every month, so you're getting, realized gains or losses every month.
But those are not taxed, right? Because we're a 501c3.
But even as a nonprofit, we
Yeah.
do track it, and for our own internal uses. But I think we also have to report it to the IRS.
We do, yes. But that is a key difference for nonprofits where, when you do have that appreciation, you're in a much better shape than if you're, you could be a Bitcoin startup that's losing money but have a big gain in Bitcoin. If you have to sell, it's not, could end up paying tax when you wouldn't have to otherwise. So you want to be aware of that.
Totally. So what are maybe some of the other ways? Okay, so we're talking about from a tax treatment, from a treasury standpoint, tax treatment we'll talk about to the side. How do you, without divulging any like kind of secrets around how you're custodying, how do you guys each individually think about custody? We talked about Jesse and Becca were here earlier. They were talking about all the custody trade-offs. We had Rob explaining all the different pillars of custody. One was interesting to me was people rolling off the board or rolling off as an advisor or a key. I'm just curious to know how you guys think about custodying the Bitcoin.
I mean, it's a little hard to talk about without divulging something, but I mean, I will say for us, we're relatively small, but we have a 5-person board, and we have all volunteers, and then we have volunteer officers also, Joe being one of them on the Treasury side. We do use on-chain. We manage our own multi-key storage for our Bitcoin side of our Treasury, so it requires, multiple signers to pay our grants every month. We do the same thing, though, with our fiat. Like, we use a bank that also requires multiple approvals to send the wires. So kind of try to keep it the same on both sides. And we also have, like a backup key holder, but we do try to keep it simple.
What does a backup key holder mean?
Well, so this would be, for instance, if you had a vault, it's something like an Unchained, they also have a key. and then the organization has keys.
So
also.
like collaborative custody.
So it's collaborative custody, right? But it's not just collaborative. Like we could potentially, like we're all, we make Bitcoin software. We could make. We don't need to use a third party. We could have just more signers within our organization, but we chose to have somebody outside of our organization also holding a key. So.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned taxes. Again, another thing I'm an expert on. John was making this joke. Yeah, you have a masked guy talking about how do you pay taxes, support the government.
How about we start with custody then?
Yes,
Let's
and
talk about
how we
custody.
go to custody. As someone that has experienced that with nonprofit projects, for-profit projects, then advising entities on how to do it, I think we need to always keep in mind that we are the ones now creating standards. There are no standards that are written, so we are creating them. And as we are doing that, we can come up with best practices because previously, in like fiat system, you had the whole structure of, hey, you have a board and then board issues a directive, and then there is not even like CFO, but there is a finance person in that department who issues a wire, knowing that you can reverse a wire and so on and so forth. What I think will happen as we're advancing is that you will have a situation where whoever is on that board has a key. Bless you. And those people that have keys, there will need to be a quorum of, say, it's like 2 out of 5 or 3 out of 5. And then as board creates directives, they're the ones actually executing them and signing them cryptographically every month or whatever is the payout schedule. So that's something I've implemented in BTC Pay Server. There is also this vendor pay plugin. So we have a multi-sig where if there's 4 of us on a board, each of us, we have a key. And then every month when all the contributors send in their invoices, they're the ones defining the addresses. We see what are the invoices that came in, select all of them. We delegate it to, like, let's say it's me on the board that does that. Review the invoices, click a button, and I create a multi-sig transaction. And we're all notified over email, hey, we need to sign this transaction. And as long as 2 of us from the board are doing it, then everyone is getting the payout. And that's nonprofit situation. In for-profits, experience that I now have is CFO delegates someone from finance team, and they're the ones reviewing the invoices, making sure amounts are correct, making sure addresses are correct, and they're the ones creating the transaction. Once they create transaction, CFO logs in, signs off, and it goes out.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point, and it really highlights how with Bitcoin we can actually integrate the kind of traditional controls. We would have those same controls in a traditional for-profit business, and we put those all through the banking system, or we do them internally and say, hey, make sure the CFO sees this, signs off on it. You can actually bake that into your wallet infrastructure, and you can have your highest level at the board or at your CFO level, and they would have certain rights and sign-offs, and maybe you have to sign out of that wallet to get it into the wallet where you can spend it to send it to vendors, right? And you can have different key structures there. And so really personalizing that at different levels where your day-to-day operations, you might need your accounting manager to be able to send out 1 million sats, 2 million sats. But if you want to send out 1, 2, 3 Bitcoin, that has to come from the board or something like that. And so Bitcoin lets you integrate that into your process in a way that right now it's either done offline or you're using the banking system to put those controls in place as far as the payment side.
So it feels like it comes from the top down. Just get some structure in place and put some specific guardrails in place. So your guys' experience, we'll start with the bad. What are some of the mistakes or things you would avoid for the folks in this audience that want to?
I just wanted to just touch on something that Rockstar briefly touched on, which is, so something with Bitcoin, especially when you're paying out like vendors, is it's not like a traditional system today where you can do like a 50-cent transfer to make sure that they put in their wire information correctly or their ACH information correctly. But the best practice would be they give you a different address every month. And so you're not going to test that every month. And then who signs off that the payment addresses that they gave you are actually their payment addresses and didn't get changed in between. So there's like one extra step. And the tools for Obviously, you want to automate it, like something like BTC Pay server has a feature where the people receiving the payments can give you their addresses, and it's kind of it's a server, and it's like the software is secure enough to keep all that information, but it's an extra step, something for on-chain Bitcoin and even Lightning. Like if someone's giving the Lightning invoice, you want to make sure it's the correct Lightning invoice that you're paying, and that's difficult. It could be if it's on-chain, you got to check the first bytes and the last few bytes of the address. Things like that. Like it's a new operational step you need to worry about.
No, and for me, it's if you're sending emails back and forth with the address and the amount, you gotta put in a better system. And I know a lot of people are doing it in their project. If you're doing it that way, please approach me after this talk, and I can show you how we do it in BTC Pay server. Because what you mentioned with sending test transactions, I see that as well. It's like, hey, here is my address. Oh, I've sent you 0.00, like 1 Bitcoin, confirm. And then, oh, confirmed. Okay, I'll send the rest. And to me, this all goes into what I'm saying. We are building standards right now. And especially because every company will be a Bitcoin company. And within every company, there will need to be a knowledge. Like you will need to be a person that knows how to now integrate Bitcoin in the cash flow of your company and help them go to the next level. Because I've seen it across a number of companies I advise. It just, you have a person that's employed just to like check and send emails.
Yeah, this is like radical responsibility. I mean, when you're vetting these people to become grantees or become employees, there's obviously checks and balances you're going through. But I feel like this is another level up where it's like, hey, you're going to potentially sign off on a transaction that's a portion of our, like, is there any things that you look for to delegate this? Like if you're the CFO of a company or you're on the board chair to say, you know what, I trust you now, Joe, or this person to be one of the signers.
I think what Joe said in the beginning of panel is really important. He said it regarding Bitcoin position. It's like if your Bitcoin position is so big or such that it influences your decisions that you're making in business, you need to deal with that. And it's similar with people that are, I saw it on open source projects especially, people that are managing Treasury, and then you have a single SIG wallet. So they're the ones sending payments every month. It changes them, especially as that Treasury grows. And it's a huge burden and responsibility. So I won't name names and projects, but there were open source projects that got destroyed because of Bitcoin going down in price. And then the founder of the project and key signer is like, well, we lost money. I know I'll make it back on margin. Like, let's go leverage. Like Bitcoin can't fall below like 30K. No way. So, and then they lose the whole treasury. They start like a next thread. Like, oh, I'm sorry. Hey, no one cares, man. Like you just destroyed your reputation for what?
I'll say there is one thing. I mean, so I think like what Joe was talking about with the responsibility organization being tightly kind of attached to the keys and the actual operations of it. I'll say another thing that Bitcoin gives you, especially to the self-custodial model, is it's completely auditable in a way that I think is hard to do with fiat even. So, so the people in the organization theoretically can have public key descriptor information for the wallet, and they can check it anytime they want. They don't even need to go ask the treasurer or the CFO. They can just go look and see what's moving on chain. So that's a nice thing. Maybe you're looking for problems. That's actually a nice thing.
Yeah, I mean, I think the other thing to consider there is just the problem that you're solving is different for each size of an organization, and that if it's 2 founders or three founders, like they know each other, you're close knit, like you probably have relatively low treasury there. If someone were to misspend that Bitcoin, like they're putting obviously the company in significant risk there. You guys are all kind of aligned that you're probably not going to do that, right? Versus you get to a large organization or a nonprofit, or certainly a large organization, you want to make sure those keys are held probably in different hands. And so at some level, right, it's like, hey, let's bring in somebody completely separate from our organization that would have no monetary interest in it, and their whole reputation is holding the keys from a custody standpoint. And so making sure that the incentives are aligned for anybody who holds a key not to misuse that key, I would say.
Yeah. So I look at it just on the business side as like, what's the use case and what are you trying to solve? So, from hot wallets to multi-sig to even full custodial with like reports that we need to provide to our accountants, Joe, and tax returns and so on. Do you feel like it's easier just to have one solution and a multi-sig, or do you think there's a bunch of different custodial kind of solutions for any of the either for-profit or non-profits that you guys are running?
I think it's always about standards and how do you implement those standards, because having someone like Joe say that's a great pattern. Like Joe then as a person helping a project, whether non-profit or for-profit, has developed through his experience a set of standards, and then it's his recommendation, like use this and provide it to me in this format, and that's what I would lean on. And for me, again, as a developer, as someone that implements those standards, what really guided me was working with users like Joe across organizations, and then it's, as I said, we're sending emails every month. Let's not do that. Let's have it automatically sent. I'm the one getting an address and email and entering it on behalf of the users. No, let's give that over to users to fill it in. We have test transactions, automate that as well.
I will say that I think currently we use multiple tools, and I would love to see a tool that's a little more comprehensive. Maybe BTC Pay Server is moving in that direction. And, because we use Quicken, for instance, the accounting portion is handled by Quicken. We have a fiat, separate fiat software, banking software that we use. But if you look at something like Quicken, even though they support multi-currency and they support Bitcoin as one of their multi-currencies, the decimal points they support are 2 only. And so it's useless. It's completely useless. Like, I would love to see something like Quicken that supported 8 decimal points. That would be kind of nice. So.
It's in the works. It's not quite done yet.
In the works? Okay, good.
Yeah, no, but I mean, from the accountant standpoint, it's always like we always tell you, if you have one source of data for it, it's always easier. But that doesn't mean that's going to be the right solution from you from an operational standpoint. But the fewer sources that we have to go to get information is always easier.
That's something that I may suggest, because I saw a webinar that Rod did with Parker and Zaprite. Maybe that's something you can do for us at BTC Pay Server, Rod. We can present the treasury management with BTC Pay. Are you in?
In.
Okay, and we get Joe as well. So maybe we can do that, like BTC Pay Server as your Bitcoin treasury, and then how does it export to Quicken? And we go from there. Yeah, I can prepare that.
I heard Joe also has sort of a network of accounting colleagues who are into this stuff.
Yeah, there's like dozens of us right now.
Dozens.
So, I love that. So, and by the way, all of your costs are still denominated out in fiat, right? You're not denominating anything out in Bitcoin now and not taking that risk?
I have heard of some other nonprofit that used to give their grantees the opportunity to denominate in dollars or Bitcoin, and it didn't work out well.
At the spot price of the Bitcoin that they received
Yes.
the grant?
Yes.
So if it was, let's say it was a $100,000 grant and the price of Bitcoin was 100,000, they get one Bitcoin divided by whatever, 12 months.
Right.
And then Bitcoin goes to $1 million, they're still
Right.
getting that payout.
Yeah.
Or it goes down to 10,000. But the problem is, in that scenario, if it goes down to 10,000, they're like, fuck it, I'm not doing this anymore.
Right.
And they're getting the upside.
Where we are right now, it's just not a prudent thing to do. So we don't offer grants like that, and I think most nonprofits I know of don't do that anymore either.
But it is one of those things, though, when we're talking about risk and holding Bitcoin. If you were going to hold X amount of Bitcoin, and then you're going to hold more than that because this grant is denominated in Bitcoin, it really does net out, right? Well, you do have the downside of
Safer for the organization if they know if it's denominated in the same units you're storing.
yeah. But yeah, to the point, if Bitcoin drops by half and they're like, I'm not working for half, you're out of luck. Yes.
Yeah, so one of the nice things, so my friend Econo Alcanis and I, we started a nonprofit called the 256 Foundation. It is so much easier to manage Bitcoin with a nonprofit because it's like, all right, end of the month, we have a 50-50 kind of strategy. I don't know if it's right or not, but it's like 50% in Bitcoin, 50% in cash, and then we have like through whatever 3 or 3.5 months of runway for the grantees, and then it's basically kind of trued up every 1 or 2 months. But I still, again, struggle on the for-profit side, Joe. It's like how, because I want to accumulate more Bitcoin. And I guess, yes, it's the 6-month runway. But like, I guess what's the portion where it's like a little dangerous? Is it 1 month? Is it?
No, I mean, it's going to be dangerous regardless. Like, Bitcoin can always drop by 50%, right? I think the way to think about it is, one, like, are you cash flow positive? Like, that takes away a lot of pressure. Right. Most startups aren't. So then it's like, all right, well, what's my time frame here, right? Am I looking over a 1, 2, 3 year time frame, and how do I want to allocate Bitcoin accordingly? And what is my operational runway there, right? And what is my access to funds? Like, those all factor in, right? If I was going to go raise funds within a year anyways for my next round, that's very different than I just raised funds and I dumped it all on Bitcoin. Now it went down by half, right? And so where you're at in that cycle, what you're doing operationally really matters there. And so it's one of those where we can't just be like, oh, here's the rule all the time. It really is like, how's your business doing? How are you working operationally? I would just say, like, you can always have the upside with Bitcoin. It can go 2, 3x, but you should never be basing your business around that. That should always be like an additional like benefit. We have a bunch of clients that invested in Bitcoin 2 years ago. Is a really good time for it. Whether it was they had just raised funds and they allocated maybe 20%, maybe 30%, and it ended up being a huge portion of their treasury now as they spent down the cash and they hold the Bitcoin. And so it's one of those where you can take a relatively conservative in Bitcoin sense position and it make an outsized effect over a longer period of time. But if you're looking at 3, 6, even a year, you're exposing yourself to a lot more risk there.
Yeah. We're going to open up for questions here in a second. I am actually interested. Is there any like international consideration? You know, your developers are all over the world. Your developers are all over the world that you think about?
Fortunately, as opposed to Japan, it's pretty easy to send wires all over the world here. We haven't run into problems for grantees that do want fiat. But obviously, Bitcoin is much easier. It's quicker. It's much better. I will say one thing that's maybe related to our grantees that we didn't talk about, which is a Treasury thing that we deal with, is the kind of financial privacy too. Like, if you're paying people in Bitcoin, you also want to preserve their privacy. And, you know, we keep the like identities of our grantees just between our team, like just a small team of people that are dealing with paying those grants. Because technically, if you're paying somebody on chain, you know quite a bit about them. Like, this on chain especially is not very private. So I think as a group running a treasury for even a nonprofit or a profit, you have to think about the privacy of the people you're paying also. And it's a new little wrinkle that you have to consider. But yeah, in terms of paying people, Bitcoin is better. But yeah, the U.S. has got a pretty good wire transfers.
No, I just want to recognize how many of you laughed when Rod mentioned cash flow. Is it positive? And then like, no. But no, having a nonprofit out of Japan, it makes it like so much more complicated. There are like additional regulations, and again, banking system is much worse. But I think we are getting to the point where we can define these standards, and then when there is a new open source project, there is a company interested in how do I run Treasury with Bitcoin, we have some kind of materials to point them out, and we can share just a case study and practical experiences so that it's like 6 months. Okay, why? Okay, read this.
Love it.